Session this March 14th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. As always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would rise and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll take roll call. Commissioner Inga.
Here.
Commissioner Newman.
Present.
Commissioner Magai.
Here.
Vice Chair Heschler.
I'm here.
Chair Keldorf.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Any public communications? Now is the time to come on up. Seeing none, we'll close public communications. Any written communications?
No, Madam Chair, nothing received.
Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar, looks like just one item, our February 22nd, February 22nd meeting minutes. Take a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I second.
And I'll take votes. Commissioner Inga.
Aye.
Commissioner Newman.
Yes.
Commissioner Magai.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heschler.
I wasn't there, but I approved them.
And Chair Keldorf.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, continued business. This was an item continued from our last Planning Commission meeting. El Segundo South Campus Specific Plan Amendment and Vesting Tentative Track Map. Assuming there's a staff report?
Yes, there's a staff report. Jasmine will go ahead and give a brief presentation, kind of an overview. And as you had indicated, this was a continued item from February 22nd. So anyhow, so I'll go ahead and turn it over.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'll be presenting Environmental Assessment 1348 for the El Segundo South Campus Specific Plan Amendment and Vesting Tentative Track Map number 83236. The project site is located at 2100 East El Segundo Boulevard, which is zoned El Segundo South Campus Specific Plan, and it is specifically in the Commercial Office Mixed Use District. It is identified as Phase 1 in the specific plan, and it is specifically in lots 15 and 16, which is currently developed with a commercial retail center known as Chargers Commons, which contains 6 buildings for uses such as medical office, fast food uses, retail uses, and other restaurant uses. The site also contains 385 surface parking spaces. Again, this is for Phase 1, which is comprised of lots 15 and 16. The project does not propose any new development as part of this request, and the applicant is proposing to amend the specific plan development standards by modifying allowable uses, setback requirements, parking requirements within the Phase 1 area only. They're also proposing to subdivide 2 existing lots, which are 15 and 16, where the development currently sits, to allow a 7-lot track map subdivision. The first amendment proposes to include structures and surface parking lot use as a permitted primary use for Phase 1 CMU district only. The second specific plan amendment will add language to allow buildings and structures with frontage on the portion of El Segundo Boulevard to be set back a minimum of 5 feet from each lot line within the Phase 1 area of the specific plan. And lastly, the applicant is proposing additional text to the specific plan Phase 1 area only, which will allow 100% of the required parking to be off-site, subject to director approval, and the additional language will allow retail and restaurant uses in the specific Phase 1 area within the CMU district only for its parking lots to service multiple lots or buildings subject to following standards, which would be the recordation of reciprocal parking and access easements or covenants in conjunction with the final map. The El Segundo South Campus specific plan that was originally adopted was found to be consistent with the general plan, and the proposed amendments are consistent with the specific plan's vision, goals, and objectives. Specifically, staff finds that the amendments are consistent with the general plan's economic development and land use element objectives and policies. Because the proposed amendments do not create any nonconformities with the existing commercial development, the city's retail and economic base is going to continue to expand and be maintained. The amendments do provide development standards tailored to the Phase 1 area of the specific plan that is being modified, and the modifications do not interfere with the existing commercial center development at the site. The proposed vesting tentative tract map is going to subdivide the existing parcels 15 and 16, which will result in a development of which are comprised of Phase 1 commercial development, and it's going to result into 7 lots. Each building and associated surface level parking lots will be separated on each individual parcel. For example, Lot 1 will host a drive-through restaurant, and the size of the lot is 20,096 square feet. Lot 2 is going to host a surface parking lot, and the size is 85,964 square feet, and so forth. The specific plan does permit the land to be divided into smaller parcels. And as indicated in the staff report, the proposal does not include additional or more intense development beyond what is currently allowed by the specific plan. It is also not going to increase the development's density potential within the specific plan area for the Phase 1. And through the recordation of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, they will be ensuring the maintenance of common areas, landscape, trash, and exterior buildings, the exterior of the building. No physical changes to the existing commercial center are being proposed with the subdivision. The above findings for the subdivision cannot be made because the existing development is going to continue to respond to the goals and objectives of the general plan, which emphasize in maximizing economic benefit, reducing traffic impacts, and encouraging pedestrian environments. The proposed subdivision will optimize the property value for the existing commercial retail center, and the site does provide sufficient land area on the lot for the proposed configuration and existing development. The proposed subdivision, so each lot that will result of the subdivision, will comply with the development standards set forth in the specific plan and in our municipal code. The proposed modifications do result in lots varying with sizes that either meet or exceed the minimum size and dimension requirements. The minor amendments to the specific plan are necessary in order to accommodate the proposed subdivision that's before you. And the proposed amendments are not going to change the existing development potential of the project site. The proposed amendments will not involve any new significant environmental effects or substantial increase in the severity of previous identified effects through our existing EIR. The proposed amendments and subdivision will enhance the existing development standards for Phase 1 area within the commercial office mixed-use land use designation of the specific plan. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution Number 2947, recommending City Council approval of the specific plan amendment for the El Segundo South Campus specific plan, and adopt the attached Resolution 2948, approving vesting tentative tract map number A3236. And that concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, the applicant is also present.
Thank you, Jasmine. Before inviting the applicant up, any questions for staff? I saw you taking some notes.
Oh, that means nothing. Yeah, Jasmine, thanks. Just to clarify, so if 100% of parking is off-site, what that means here is those little lots have no parking on them, but they'll use lots 2 and 3 to handle the parking requirements.
That is correct.
Okay.
And through the recordation of the access agreements and parking covenants, that's how everything's going to talk to each other to ensure that it's not being used for something else.
Gotcha. Thank
And to piggyback on that question, which was mine as well, I think the term would be adjacent to, not, and that's considered off-site.
That is correct, because it's
Okay.
not in the same physical lot, unfortunately.
Capiche, thank you.
So yeah, that kind of piqued my ears too, when, 100% of the parking would be off-site. So if I remember last time we talked about this commons area, the part that's not included is the medical office, right, in the medical building?
Correct.
And then we kind of like talked about how that's a really high parking use kind of use. So these lots are supposed to serve that use, right? Because why wasn't that included if, so when they developed that site, to accommodate all the parking, they referred to lots 2 and 3. So to me, they're kind of tied together. It seems like it's been kind of pulled apart from this. Why wasn't that included, is my first, I have a couple other questions. But shouldn't that be included if the lots that provide parking are being, I guess, subdivided?
Well, I think what happens is yeah, the medical office building is still functions as part of phase one. But I think if I remember correctly, that's an actual individual piece of property too, right? So that's why it's not enveloped into this particular track map. Because what encompasses this track map are those 2 lots that are currently, developed with the retail and restaurant uses.
Because, I mean, asking for, off-site parking tells me that there's not enough parking, right? And we talked about how this is a really high parking use type of for, so kind of concerned, so the parking for it will be adjacent. So we have identified parcels that can,
Well, so it's almost a play on words because technically off-site, it almost insinuates that it's somewhere else. But as Jasmine indicated, really what it's saying is that you don't have parking and the actual building or the uses on the same piece of property. And so in this case, even though it's off-site, it is adjacent to it, and it's all being tied together by, through the use of covenants and CC&Rs.
but we do have pieces of land that we've identified that can be used for parking.
Yes.
For these. Okay.
Yes, we have. And it will continue to also serve the medical office building.
Okay, yeah, I get, but that's all to the discretion of the director. That was the language in there?
Correct.
Okay.
And the covenants and CCR, I mean, that's something that's reviewed by staff and that
Correct.
we have
Reviewed by
access
staff
to.
and city attorney's office as well.
And I'm assuming there's some sort of commercial HOA or maintenance agreement that's part of there. Everybody has a shared obligation to take care of the parking lots.
Correct. Yes, just like a condominium association. Mhm.
So potentially there could be 7 different owners in these 7 lots, right? If someone were to own lot 2 or lot 3, could they say, sorry, lot 6, you can't park here anymore? Would they ever be able to?
They will not be able to do that, as the purpose of lots 2 and 3 are to service the commercial center that's currently sits in what's lots 15 and 16,
Gotcha. Okay.
Including the
And that's
medical
in
office.
including the medical office,
And
yes.
that's in the CCRs or whatever the mechanism for that
Yes,
language?
it will be language because it is part of the conditions of approval as well.
That lots 2 and 3 remain parking only.
Correct.
And
To
there's-
serve the existing commercial retail center and medical office.
And if I may, those covenants will run with the land and would bind future owners.
Have you figured or thought through if you've got retail, restaurant, plus the medical center, what numbers that you would actually need? Do you feel that there's enough parking with lots 2 and 3 to support potential full build-out?
Yes, so that was one of the things that we looked at when the initial development for phase one came in, was to ensure that there was adequate parking. And as the commission may recall, last year when the Starbucks came in, that kind of modified a little bit of the amount of required parking. And even with that development, overall, taking into account all the various uses, including the Starbucks and the medical office building, they currently have sufficient parking there per our code. And this subdivision wouldn't change that.
So why are we doing it then? So my concern is that this is to me, this is an up-and-coming area of El Segundo with the Chargers going in there and stuff, and it's new, and I don't want it to get off the wrong foot of having it be like because complete parking cluster as, you know, getting off of the ground, so. But if there is enough parking to serve all the uses, so why are we making this, why are we putting this provision in?
Well, I mean, I think the applicant could elaborate more on that, but I mean, I think part of it could also be looked at, you know, so for financing purposes and stuff like that, but ultimately, for a concrete answer, I mean, we can have the applicant answer exactly what the
Okay,
intent behind it
and then
is.
before they come up here, are we losing parking with lot one, with the lot one becoming kind of like a flag parcel?
That's the drive-through for the Starbucks that's
Yeah.
going in.
So are we losing parking with that?
No, that was already previously approved last year. Yeah, that layout.
And I guess just to clarify, when it was, excuse me, lots 15 and 16, all that parking was figured out, and this still is part of that same plan.
Correct.
Correct. So lots 15 and 16 are already developed. That's where the commercial center sits. And they were not proposing to modify what's existingly there. And based on the specific plans, developmental standards such as FAR and all that fun stuff, they're pretty much maxed out. So that's as far as the development can get. So no more parking would be required.
And there is nothing in this approval that impacts the overarching development agreement at all with the phased development of the property.
Not so far, and we checked all the amendments it's had.
Thank you. I know there were a lot of amendments attached, so appreciate that.
Following up on Commissioner Newman's question, I'm curious to know how many parkings per square footage, per square feet there actually are available. That two per 1,000 or 3 per 1,000, or, you know, between lots 2 and 3, if we have that information.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look at what the standards were for it, but I believe they were just our regular retail requirements per our parking ordinance, which depending on the size could vary between 1 to 300 and on up. So at the very least, yeah, it is appropriately parked, even taking into account the various restaurants that are out there, including their outdoor dining.
Yeah, the retail requirements would have, I guess, a lower spots per square foot versus a medical building. So it would be a mix. I don't think there's one number for it. Can we restripe the parking if we needed more parking? Because restripe the stalls if we needed more parking. If I remember, the parking spots are pretty big.
Commissioner Guy, I just want to jump in because we're sort of getting a little off track here. The subject under consideration tonight is the lot line adjustment. We don't have a mechanism to require any restriping or any change to the parking count or layout tonight. We're only considering the lot line adjustment. So we're happy to answer questions about those things, but I just want to set the appropriate expectation.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm not asking to make a change right now, but if it does turn out that there's not enough parking because of the uses, can we do that?
The short answer is no, and the reason is because the proximity to the light rail station, they're actually exempt from providing any parking. So any consideration in the future for development perspective, we're very limited on what we can do with parking.
To that end, we are right next to the train station, which is great. Does any of this relotting affect any pedestrian access or anything? Is it, everything's exactly the same as it has been in the original plan?
Everything will remain the same. It's just on paper, you're creating actual individual lots.
And I believe there's a bike lane.
I wasn't going to bring it up, Michael.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yes, and through the CCNRs, they're also going to ensure that none of that is impacted.
Thank you. Okay, we will open public communications, and first right goes to the applicant.
Hello, Commissioners. Lionel Yuri, just here to answer any questions you might have or clarifications.
Thanks, Lionel.
So I guess it was the applicant's decision to leave the parcel or the lot with the medical building off of this?
So the lot with the medical building, prior to this, there's 2 lots. There's a lot with the medical building and everything else. And because that lot is not being altered in any way, then it's not part of the application for the subdivision map act, because it's just staying the way it is, so nothing's happening to it. So you don't That's why it's not shown here as part of it, because it's not affected.
It's gonna still have the same CCNR's covenant. It's gonna be part of the comprehensive.
It's part of the
Parking
comprehensive.
arrangement.
But none of the lines are moving and no new lines are being introduced on that lot. So it's like, it's not applicable to the entitlements. When you go to do the map, you're showing, okay, what is changing on the lot? This one is its own lot, it's not changing. Just like an adjacent lot, you know, that's not part of this, wouldn't be part of this application. So it's just kind of a technicality about the fact that we're not modifying it, so it's not included.
And the question about why you're doing this, I'm assuming it's because it is financially beneficial to have the option to sell off each lot
Yeah,
individually.
it's not unusual for centers like this, retail centers, to be able to put buildings onto separate lots like this. So for instance, Plaza El Segundo, the different components that make it up are on different lots, and it helps with financing and other flexibility in the future from a financial perspective.
The pardon me, the Starbucks lot is an unusual shape, isn't it?
Yes.
Needs to remain a drive-through no matter what it is at any point.
I mean, if it was not going to be a drive-through at some point, that lot, you know, could get adjusted a little bit. But because it's pushed over to the end there anyways, you'd have a hard time kind of turning it into additional parking or something in the future, because you can't get the drive aisles to fit. But more than likely, with Starbucks and their lease and at least their reputation, I mean, who knows? But they plan on being there for quite some time.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Great,
Thanks, Lionel.
thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come up and talk on this topic? Seeing none, we will close public communications, and any further conversation will come from the dais. I mean, I understand why we're doing this. I have no objections. This is not even relevant necessarily to approving or denying. The one thing I will say is in the future, it would make it challenging when life changes and uses change, and we live in the future, to redevelop this into anything other than what it is, because you'll be assembling 7 ownership interests potentially instead of 1. But that's not really within our realm of what we're approving. So I have no issues.
Yeah, no, I'm very supportive of this as well. If this is, makes business sense for the property owners, and just want to be mindful of that, we have to think about how we are going to accommodate all the parking, whatever, as the future need, or, because like I said, this is an upcoming place in El Segundo. I think it's going to get a lot of foot traffic and a lot of eyes on it because of the chargers and things like that, so.
Madam Chair, if I may, just wanted to note, for purposes of a motion, that there are 2 resolutions in play, one pertinent to the specific plan amendment and the second pertinent to the track map. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make a motion.
Do you need 2 motions, or is it one motion with two?
Pardon me. To adopt resolution number 2948, approving a subdivision to create 7 land parcels for an existing commercial retail center, Chargers Commons Commercial Center, and adopt resolution number 2947, recommending City Council approve an amendment to the ESSC-SP, modifying permitted uses, setback requirements, and parking requirements.
And I second.
Now I'll take votes. Commissioner Inga,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Magai,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heschler,
Aye.
and Chair Keldorf.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Okay, we are moving on, and I have lost
New public hearing.
to the mouthful, that is environmental assessment and zone text amendment on the driveway and curb cut standards in the El Segundo Municipal Code.
So as Paul gets ready, I'll just give a real brief intro. So this this zone text amendment, as the council or the commission, may know, is kind of a result of the Beach Cities campus that came before you back in September of last year. The applicant at that time was proposing some modifications to the code through an adjustment process, which the commission actually denied upon a recommendation, but did offer offer up the, looking into a potential zone text amendment to really hone in on where a reduction in the minimum distances can be more appropriate. So Paul has been looking at that and working with the applicant and also with our public works folks and our traffic folks, so that way to find a happy medium on that, which I think is what we found. And I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Paul now so he can go ahead and go into those details.
Thanks, Eduardo.
Yeah. Good evening, Chair and fellow commissioners. We'll skip that first intro. Eduardo covered that. So quickly, project description. The topic is the minimum distance between curb cuts on non-residential properties. The current minimum distance required between curb cuts is 24 feet. The request here is to create an exception to allow a minimum distance of 10 feet between curb cuts in specific situations listed here. Only on major or secondary arterial streets, only when the driveways are signalized at an intersection with a street that is signalized, and then when the ultimate design is subject to the community development director and the city engineer sort of discretion.
Oh, I'm sorry to interject. Just, the commission may as well know, but for any members of the public, just as far as the description of what a curb cut is.
Curb cut is the access point onto a private property from a street for vehicles to enter and exit private properties. So quick background, I know you're familiar with this. The code intent behind the 24-foot minimum distance between curb cuts is to preserve on-street parking, improve traffic safety, and improve on-site circulation of vehicles. In this particular case, as Eduardo mentioned, the application came out of the Beach Cities Media Campus project. And as a refresher, the project is on Rosecrans Avenue, which is an arterial street, higher speeds and higher traffic volumes. No parking is permitted on the street on Rosecrans Avenue. Just a little closer look at the property. So when it comes to the intent of the code to protect or preserve parking, it's really not of concern in this particular situation on this arterial street. And as a refresher, the application for the Beach Cities Media Campus involved this driveway design where you have a signalized intersection and there's wide driveways, about 30 feet wide, with 2 lanes going in and 2 lanes going out, and with a 10-foot separation between the 2 driveways. Staff believes that this request for the zone text amendment is justified under these specific circumstances because it is consistent with the code intent. It does not cause on-street parking to be lost. The signalization helps to control traffic and avoid any sort of conflicts on-site or off-site. Providing at least a median between driveways allows for safe passage for pedestrians across the driveways. And generally speaking, this amendment is consistent with the general plan because part of the intent is to make the code flexible so that if there are specific circumstances such as large commercial properties with specific needs, they can use that flexibility to design their curb cuts and their driveways. That's our conclusion, or when we recommend that the commission adopt resolution 2949, recommending city council approval of this amendment.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions for staff?
Is there currently a signal there, or it's future signal?
It is proposed as part of the development of the property.
Gotcha. So there's a signal right now going into the Point, and then goes across the street to the Manhattan Beach deal.
Yeah.
So this would be not terribly far east of that intersection. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not very far, but not too close to create issues with signals that close to each other.
Gotcha. And the signal goes in right away, before the curb cut or at the time of the curb
It will
cut?
be part of the project construction. So before that project is occupied, that work will have to be done. Yeah,
Gotcha.
at the same time, basically.
And quick question, just the number of 10 feet. That's just what the designers felt, that it aesthetically looked appealing, that seemed to be enough room. What have other cities done? I mean, this is probably the first time our city of El Segundo has been faced with something like this. And whereas 24 feet, I remember the discussion when they came before Planning Commission last time, 24 feet seemed like a lot of wasted land for them to develop, but like, why 10 feet?
It is, I think you gave the answer in this particular case, that the applicant and the design of that particular development had about a 10 or 11-foot distance between the two driveways.
Have we looked at other examples? Do we have other examples?
I can't think of a specific example in this case, but there are plenty of sort of commercial centers that have large driveways with signalized intersections that have sort of a median between the driveways.
Just not in El Segundo that we've been able to monitor.
It is basically something that's relatively common on large-scale developments. You know, when you anticipate sort of large traffic volumes and you have a signal, there's many times a sort of a separation between the incoming and the outgoing traffic.
Yeah, maybe even the Manhattan Beach Mall has that condition, I think. So, yeah. Actually, Paul, if you show the plan view again, that detail, it's kind of a nice example. So the 10 feet, obviously, the detail, the close-up is actually
okay,
nice.
sure.
There you go. Yeah, so it's the medium with the palm
tree
trees in it
line,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and when we had the conversation, it was that 24 feet actually created a very long walking path.
Yes.
And am I remembering correctly as well, when we talked about this a while ago, that we were struggling to think of another place on Rosecrans that this might even apply to, right? Which I understand. Well, okay. But if we don't, any questions from staff, and then we can open it up to the applicant. Okay. Mr. Rose, you want to come on up? You're chomping at the bit.
Good evening, Commission. Alex Rose, Continental Development. This is exactly the same design that we have between our terrace building and our atrium building at the other end of Rosecrans. So it is precisely a El Segundo condition, and it's a replication of a signalized intersection just at the other end. Question about why the 10 feet, why the 11, this actually happens to be 11. It's both to facilitate the landscaping design and not just have a big pathway for vehicular circulation, ingress, egress, but it is also for a pedestrian refuge, so it's safety as well.
Understood.
So there's actually a little curb cut for pedestrians that bisects that island, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Was there, I guess, a question for staff, was there code written from the development for the other location that you had to do? And like, why is it coming before us now? And
If
didn't
I
need to last time?
Well, it was
Yeah,
an
I think if I
exception.
remember the history correctly, the city did not have this code provision in the municipal code when the terrace was developed, which that was back in 1988. And this particular code provision apparently came into play subsequent to our development of that.
Commissioner, that's accurate. This particular code provision was added to the code in 2011 or so.
So, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else wishing to come on up? We'll close public communications and just have the conversation up here. Again, if I'm remembering correctly, this was, right, the workaround to not feeling comfortable granting the exception at the time it was originally proposed. So I do appreciate the applicant going back and following that process.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's something that would be codified. I have no issue.
No? Seems
No,
to be working, and that's the thing. There's an example already in town, within the city limits, so, yeah, it's just that kind of a disconnect from the way the code was written to what already exists and seems to be working nicely. This makes good sense to me.
Yeah, I'm glad there's a median there. It's the right scale. It's landscaped. It makes turning in and turning out easier. There's less confusion of, where you're supposed to go. So I think it's the right approach.
24 feet, you'd have to hustle. Maybe, to
Yeah.
get across
Well, that too.
in the light cycle.
Right. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if nothing else, I will accept a motion to approve.
I will make a recommendation to adopt resolution number 2949, that the city council approves an amendment to the El Segundo Municipal Code, section 15-15-5N, driveway and curb cut standards.
I second.
And I'll take votes. Commissioner Inga,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Aye.
Commissioner Magai,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heschler,
Approved?
Chair Keldorf.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Okay, no new business items. Report from the Community Development Director. Thank you.
Nothing major to report, other than the news that the welcome sign was approved.
What?
So a contract was awarded.
How much was the contract,
I don't
Michael?
recall. I think it was $450,000 some odd dollars.
420 maybe,
Yeah,
around,
something around there.
something like that.
Which was in the realm of what the original landscape architect proposed, or the designer proposed or guessed that it would cost. Anyhow, good news is that the sign was approved. I guess depending on who you ask, but the news is the sign was approved and the contract was awarded. I don't have any timing on when that gets started, but if and when I learn when that gets kicked off, I'll definitely share it with the commission.
And to clarify, the design was done long ago, or longish ago.
Probably a couple of years ago at
Yeah,
this point.
and so it's the letters, the freestanding letters with postcard
That's correct.
stuff.
Yeah, sort of the California postcard style backing of it.
Right, and so this contract was someone to build the thing.
That's correct. Yeah.
That might not seem like a bargain, but the other bid was $1 million.
Yeah, that's right. That is,
Wow.
yeah, that's very true.
Wow, that's
So we
going to be
saved
wonderful.
$500,000.
There you go. Congratulations.
Like buying something on sale, you
Right.
know? I don't know.
Could have bought two.
Right.
So that's my
Saved
update.
you money.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll just give a little, not an update, but just a forthcoming big projects that are coming before you. So just make sure that we do have quorum for the next couple of meetings, because there are a couple of very important topics that'll be coming before you, including the R3 rezone, per our housing element, and the downtown specific plan will be coming before you all, so that way we can get that off to the council before the end of the fiscal year.
Great. Is that all in one meeting?
No, it'll be it'll be two different meetings. We wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't do that to ourselves. We wouldn't do that to you. So, but yeah, just giving you a FYI. That's coming down the pike.
Thank you. Report from the city attorney's office.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning commissioner comments.
I just want to say that last week I attended the Planning Commissioners Academy in Long Beach. Great event, a lot to learn, a lot to great, excellent sessions. It was, thank you for the opportunity for the invite. It was I learned a lot, and there is more to learn. Yeah.
I'm glad you went.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nothing for me.
it for me.
Okay, well, then with that, we are adjourned until March 28th, 2024. Thank you. March 28th.